Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. Before we get into it, I actually am going to ramble on a little bit about personal updates here. I mentioned this briefly when I was doing my review of The Black Island a couple days ago. But I also said in that review that I would save this for the weekly reading vlog, which is where I do the personal update stuff. When I started these weekly reading vlogs, I told myself I wasn't going to mix my personal life with the reading life, but sometimes they tend to be a little bit intertwined. And yeah, this week the update is I am stuck at home with COVID. Yeah, that's the update. It's my turn to go through COVID. Now, I don't know what your impression is. You can let me know in the comments, maybe. But I feel like I'm one of the last people I know to get COVID. Like, all my family has already got it. Well, family back in the States. Most of my friends have already got it. I feel like I was one of the last people who hadn't gotten it. And so for that reason, it feels like it's routine at this point, right? It's just like, oh yeah, I got COVID. It's my turn to go through it. It's just something we've all been doing this past year. Uh, yeah, and for that reason, I don't know if it's of any interest to detail the experience or not. Seems like people who, well, it is of some interest, isn't it? Because there are severe cases and there are not so severe cases, and sometimes it helps to put things in perspective, which kind of case you're dealing with. Plus, it's a global pandemic. It's maybe of historic significance to talk about or whatever. So I had a cough. Um, but we've started my daughter in the local preschool. Sorry to back up a little bit. Started my daughter in the local preschool a couple months ago. Before that, we'd been keeping her sheltered here at home. Since we started bringing her to local preschool, she's come back with one virus after another, which we knew would happen. All of my friends who have preschool age children have warned me once they start preschool, they're just going to bring home virus after virus. And sure enough, she's just been coming home with one cough after another and spreading it to the family. Uh, and We were aware that there was always a possibility one of these coughs would turn out to be COVID, but you never know which cough it's going to be, huh? So she came back with a cough. I picked it up. It wasn't. It was a bit of a strange thing in that it was just like this cough which would come out of nowhere. So there was no buildup, there was no sore throat. It was just a little every now and again, like, oh, where did that come from? I don't know. There was just something building up in my, sorry, not no buildup. There was just something sudden escaping from my throat, and then I'd be perfectly fine for 2 minutes, and then there'd be another, which would come out of nowhere. Um, I also started feeling a little bit cold, which is unusual because I'm here in the tropics. But then on Thursday, I had a headache, which started off the day with a headache. Now, the thing with me, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I'm a caffeine addict. So I have that normal headache every morning when you wake up. That's just, the you coffee drinkers out there will know what I'm talking about. Apparently, part of the reason we coffee drinkers feel like crap every morning is because our body is suffering from withdrawal symptoms because we haven't had caffeine for 8 hours. So waking up and having that normal kind of feeling in the morning uh, felt felt worse than normal. But I thought, well, okay, get a couple cups of coffee in me and see how I feel. And got a couple cups of coffee in me and still felt like I had a headache, but felt like I was able to function. went to work, but then as the day went on, the headache just became worse and worse. So after I finished my class, I was feeling like I've got to get this headache sorted out. I can't do anything with a headache like this. So I walked down to the health center at the school. I was like, "Do you have anything for headache medication?" And they said, "Well, let's get you tested for COVID." And then the test came back positive. Uh, so was sent home and told to self isolate for 7 days. That's where I am now. Uh, had The other thing is I did not have an appetite all day. I ate like a muffin for breakfast at my wife's insistence, but just didn't feel hungry for anything else. My wife tried to serve me some food that evening, but after eating it, felt some sort of, I don't know what it was. It felt like a tightening around the chest, but it was like one of those feelings where you're not really sure if it's a chest pain or if it's some sort of indigestion. But then that passed. They gave me some paracetamol for the headache, and that largely cleared up the headache. And then the subsequent days, I've not really had any symptoms except a headache and a runny nose. No, some of these symptoms are well, I was going to say atypical, but what is typical these days? There's so many variants, and everyone has their own reaction to it. I didn't have a fever, and I didn't have a sore throat. They were surprised at the health center that I didn't have any sort of sore throat that went with it. I have had some like sinus congestion, which I thought COVID wasn't supposed to be sinus congestion. I thought it was just a dry cough. Maybe I'm wrong. Yes. Sorry, I should also mention that I've got the double vaccination plus the booster. There's a fourth booster that's actually available. Sorry, I shouldn't say fourth booster. It's a fourth shot. It's the second booster because the first two shots are the vaccinations. The next two shots are the boosters. So there was a fourth shot, a second booster that's available in Vietnam now, which I was meaning to get, but I didn't. The first three shots were organized by my school, but then the fourth shot, the second booster, was something we were supposed to sort out on our own, and I just didn't get around to it. I work 7 days a week. It's just didn't. It was on my list of things to do. But it's when you're working all the time and you got two kids, it's difficult to sometimes remember to do this extra stuff like go to the doctors, go to the dentist, stuff like that. I'm not sure how that would have affected things if I had gotten the second booster. I don't know. But at any rate, I've been at home since Thursday afternoon. And I'm told to just stay at home for 7 days. Now, I strongly suspect that I caught this thing through my daughter's preschool, but the odd thing is, nobody else in my family seems to be testing positive for the virus. My wife and my sister-in-law, who's also been staying with us, both gave themselves self-tests, came back negative. We actually had the baby in to the clinic on Thursday morning because he was running a fever, but they tested his blood and they didn't find anything. The 3-year-old refuses to sit still for a COVID test, but she's had a cough but no fever. So on the one hand, I'm thinking, okay, all this coughing that's going on in this house, pretty sure everybody else has COVID. But on the other hand, I don't know. We've decided to play it cautious. Just go on the assumption that maybe somehow I could be the only one with COVID. And I have tried to lock myself in my room for the past few days. which is difficult to do because, you need to go out every now and again. I mean, to use the toilet for one thing or something like that. But I've really been trying to avoid leaving my room and haven't taken a shower yet today, for example, which is the primary reason why I've chosen to appear off camera, not appear on camera, uh, for this week's weekly reading vlog. I'm just going to show you the books like this, and I will refrain from showing you my grubby self who has been stuck in this room for the past few days and haven't brushed my teeth yet or haven't taken a shower or anything like that. Oh, right. Okay. So that's the personal update. So I I mean, now that I'm stuck in this room, you would think it would be great for my reading. Um, and I have tried to direct some attention towards the reading, but yeah, once again, I just waste time on the internet, Twitter, YouTube, all this stuff. Yeah, it's just a reminder sometimes that with all the time in the world, well, yeah, actually, I've always been like this, truth be told. I read best in small doses when I have huge amounts of time to read. I tend to lose focus. Um, Working on trying to remedy that. But anyways, one of the things I have tried to do is the period where I got super busy a month or so ago. I let a lot of these books drop out of my weekly reading list, and I've tried to bring them back this past week, even just bring reading a little bit of each of them. So, for example, the grammar book. Haven't touched this one in, I don't know, since a few months now. So I decided to crack that one open again and read a couple pages. I'm on the chapter on reference and possession. Yeah, I don't think I've read this since April or something. It's a little bit difficult getting back into it, but managed. Same with Herodotus. I haven't read that since about April or something. It Actually, it wasn't too difficult getting back into it. It's a war between the Persians and the Greeks, so I remembered, okay, the Persians and the Greeks are fighting, and I didn't remember all the build up to the battle, but there wasn't too much to remember. So yeah, so read some of that. Oh yeah, and then the Bible. Back to Leviticus. So again, this is something I've not read since, I don't know, April or something like that. So it was only a few pages into Leviticus, and have knocked out a couple pages more. Leviticus. It is so boring. It takes me so long just to read these 2 pages just because I keep losing focus. I just am not interested in how the sacrificial offering is prepared, which is just all that these chapters have been about. For this kind of offering, you have to put the blood on the altar this way, but for this kind of offering, you have to prepare it this way, and make sure that you put all the fat on this part of the altar and all the kidneys on that part of the altar. And it's just like, so boring. It is. I don't know if I want to harp on this too much, but it is interesting. I've been saying this the whole time, but the last time I read this straight through was when I was in 7th grade and I was a believing Christian. Reading it now as a skeptic, you're like, oh, this is just ridiculous. Like, I don't know why anyone could possibly believe that the divine Lord of the whole universe is micromanaging how sacrifices get burnt in different circumstances. But you know, when you're a Christian and you read it, it just makes perfect sense. I mean, Christians or Protestants, maybe especially, believe that this was something that, you know, this was a hoop that God was making the Israelites jump through in order to set them apart from the other nations. So they think it makes sense in that context. But reading it, and I mean, it's like a lot of things. It's a conscious decision to wave away an absurdity and say, okay, look, I know this is a little bit ridiculous, but we're going to view it through this lens, and then it's all going to make sense. And I guess maybe a lot of beliefs are like that. So, I mean, hopefully my whole commentary on Exodus doesn't just boil down to, look, this is ridiculous. But that's the that probably is what my commentary will boil down to. Wayfarer Redemption. Read a few chapters of that. It's sorry, I'm just realizing I don't have anything intelligent to say about it. It's interesting. Some interesting world building going on here. I don't know. I'm also noticing some cliches in the writing. Sorry, jumping all over here. Teaching reading skills in a foreign language. I read, let's see, the chapter 5, word attack skills. Now, the way this book is set up, part 2, which I'm on now, is reading skills and strategies. And then that's going to go into part 3, planning and teaching. So the teaching strategies aren't really supposed to come into part 3. This is just talking about what the skills and strategies are. Kind of. Although it's actually all throughout is talking about activities you can do with your students. I was very skeptical of this whole section for the reasons not unique to this author. These are reservations I've had with other authors handling the same material. For one thing, the assumption throughout is that students need to be actively taught these kind of common sense skills about how to deduce words from context. The assumption throughout all this type of literature is that, well, I guess there's a couple things. One is that good readers will do this unconsciously, but poor readers need to be taught this. And I'm like, well, do they really? But also that a lot of the things that we do in our L1 don't get transferred to our L2. And I thought, well, but doesn't it? I mean, when I was reading in my L2, I was using some of these word attack strategies. I thought it would transfer. I don't know. Sorry, this is a little bit disgusting. I'm dripping sweat. I'm trying to. I turned off the fan because I didn't want the noise of the fan in the background of this video. Normally, I do put on the air conditioning when I'm filming videos, but I'm not supposed to use the air conditioning because of the COVID, and that's something that the doctor at the health center said to me. And also, just, I mean, I mentioned before, one of the symptoms of this COVID, I just felt cold, even though it was summer here in Vietnam. But I'm not feeling cold now, and it is summer here in Vietnam, and I am filming this without the fan or the air conditioning on. So, apologies for that. Let's just, yeah. What was I saying about this? Teaching reading skills. I mean, the other thing is something I think Russ Main has been pointing out in his blog and on his Twitter is that all these teaching from context things that we tell the students to do, most of the time we native speakers don't guess words from context. It's when you encounter a word that you don't know in a text, it's very difficult to guess the meaning from context. We would normally just look it up. Russ Main will frequently point out on Twitter all his failures to guess unknown words from context when he's reading technical literature. But I mean, the other thing about all these teaching suggestions is, well, they tend to be incredibly pedantic, and so many of these books just assume an ideal student, but they don't. Nothing really seems to cater for a group of demotivated teenagers who don't want to be there and have already been studying all day and are just lethargic and just want to play some sort of game. And it also, so many of these reading strategies and vocabulary strategies, I don't know how to get them across to the student without explaining a lot. And then you have the problem of, well, if their English level is so poor, how do I explain these strategies to them? All that being said, in Christine Nuttall's defense, she did begin this whole section by saying that you should never do these strategies unless there's a demonstrated need for it in the classroom. Like, the students are running up against some sort of problem. Otherwise, she said, the students won't understand why you're doing it. So I guess if you keep that caveat in mind that she mentioned at the beginning of the section, then maybe it's okay. But, that caveat was mentioned briefly first, and then it seems to have been forgotten about. Well, who knows? Maybe the assumption is that you haven't forgotten about it. The Iliad. Finished up the Iliad. So finished up the funeral games for Patroclus, and Priam ransoming the body of Hector. And then I guess I'm gonna be reviewing the Iliad. I don't know when I'll get around to filming that review. I've already started doing the written review. It turns out I've got a lot of thoughts on this book, so the written review is turning into a bit of a monster. I'm trying to wrestle it down. As for the video review, I think I might just wait until I get through this COVID period. I don't know. No, or well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then did the Black Island, the Tintin earlier this week. Have more or less finished this one up. Just a couple pages to go. That review will be shortcoming. And then I've also got this one out of the library. But then after that, we'll have to wait to get back into the library until after I've completed my 7-day quarantine here at home. I think that's everything for this week. The only thing I haven't gotten back into rotation yet is this one. Because the way I tend to read these books involves me trying to memorize the vocabulary on the page. So that'll be my project. I'll try and bring that one back into rotation for this coming week. All right. I'll finish this up here.